Hello and welcome. This is the fourth lecture of the web development course at UL. In the last lecture, I talked about the main components that constitute that can be used in creating an HTML script. We talked about the tags, what is a start tag and an end tag or a close tag. What are the two main elements inside any HTML document, which are the head element and the body element. And we talk about the basic other elements or objects that can be put inside an HTML web page, such as the paragraph element, the image element, and we talked about attributes that can be put in any element. We talked about hyperlinks, and we talked about how we can create hyperlinks using text and using images. In this lecture, we are going to talk about various other types of important elements that we can use in an HTML document. First, let's start with providing a brief overview about special characters in HTML. In some cases, you might want to use inside your HTML web page or document a certain character that has a special meaning in HTML. For example, you have noticed that there are some characters that have special meanings. For example, the less than character means the start of a tag. The greater than character means the end of a tag. The equal character, for example, it means an equal value between the name of an attribute and the value of the attribute. There are many similar characters, such as these characters, the slash character, for example. There are many characters that have certain special meanings in HTML. So you cannot use these characters as ordinary characters in your program. For example, if I want to display a text, in this text I want to say x less than 5. I want to write the sentence x less than 5 on the web page. So in this case, I cannot just write a simple text slash p, for example, tag p, then I say x less than 5, then I close p. This is because the less than here has a special meaning, which means the start of a tag. So I cannot use it as an ordinary character inside a HTML program. In order to be able to use such characters as ordinary characters, there are special symbols in HTML that were created in HTML that substitute these characters in the web page. So you put the symbol of the character instead of the character itself, and then the browser will know that this symbol means this character. So the symbol can be a text symbol, or it can be a combination of characters and decimal or hexadecimal values. Both of these, either the numbers or the text, they represent this character. For example, if we see some of the examples that are given here in the lecture, so examples of such characters, for example, the and symbol. The and symbol is a special character, so you cannot just write and inside the text of a web page. Instead, you write something which is and then the word amp, AMP, and then semicolon. You will notice that each one of these special characters, it is substituted by a combination of text, and at the end of the text you have a semicolon. So the semicolon here is part of the symbol that constitutes the character, that replaces the character. Now, why is and a special character? Simply because it is used at the beginning of each symbol. All the symbols of all other characters, they begin with and. Because and now is a special character that constitutes the beginning of a symbol, the beginning of the text that replaces a symbol. That's why it becomes by itself a special character. So if we want to write and, the symbol and inside a text in the HTML page, we write instead of and then the word amp, and then semicolon. So the browser will browse all this symbol and will know that all this symbol represents the character and it will replace all this symbol with the character and. Similarly, for all these characters, for example, if I want to write the less than character as an ordinary character as part of my text, I write and then the word lt, which represents a summary of less than, and then I put semicolon. All of this represents or substitutes the character less than. So now the browser will know that this combination, because it has a database within the code of the browser, it has a database of all, or a table of all special characters, and how to write these characters, how the user will write these characters in the program. So whenever the browser scans a symbol that starts with and, it knows that this is the beginning of a special symbol. So if the browser reads something like and then the word lt and then semicolon, it directly replaces all this symbol with the character less than. If the user makes an error in writing one of the symbols, so the browser will not find a corresponding entry in its list or database for this symbol, then it will not be able to associate it with a certain character. In this case, the browser will just produce an error and will not display any character in the web page in replacement of this symbol. These are some of the characters, the special characters that could be used in an HTML web page, not all of them. If you want to have a look at what are all the special characters in HTML and what is the symbol for each character, you can take a look at this nice HTML page in which you can find any character that exists that can be displayed inside a web page. Any character in your mind that you might want to display in the web page, you will find a symbol for that character here. Okay, if you put your mouse at any of these characters, so here we have the character by itself, okay, and the symbol of the character. For example, here we have and exl, and then semicolon. This is the symbol for the character, but this is the text symbol. For each character, you can put instead of it in the web page either a text symbol or a number symbol. Now, if you put your mouse at the character, you will find both the text symbol and the number symbol. The number symbol could be either in decimal value. This is the decimal value of the number symbol, or in the hexadecimal value. This is the hexadecimal value, which is and then followed by the hashtag, the number symbol, and then the hexadecimal 33. So this is in hexadecimal, this is in binary. If you put inside a web page either one of these three, this means to the browser the exclamation mark symbol. Okay, similarly for any other character, you can find three symbols that could replace the character in the HTML page. You can write any one of these three symbols to replace this character. For example, the colon, either ampersand then the word colon, then semicolon, or ampersand then the number symbol, the number hashtag, and then followed by either a binary number or a hexadecimal number. So we have here in chapter 2 in the book, we have a small exercise, small program that illustrates the concept of special characters and how you can write the symbol of the special character, and the browser will produce that special character instead of its symbol. I don't know if this web page there exists. So I think it is content page. Let's see the name of this one. I think yes, this is it. So as you can see here in this web page, I'm using some symbols of characters instead of the character itself. For example, I want to write the symbol add, and here I'm using, instead of add, I'm using %, and then a semicolon. So the browser now will replace all this symbol with a single character, which is the character add. And, like this one. Also, for example, here I'm using and LT and then semicolon. Instead of all of this, I will have inside the web page the symbol less than, because this whole symbol represents the character less than in HTML. For example, the symbol and then followed by the word frac, which is an abbreviation of fraction, and then followed by the value of the fraction. So here we have 1/4, meaning that our fraction is 1/4. So instead of, then followed by a semicolon. Instead of all of this, the browser will display the fraction 1/4. If we execute this program, okay, so you can see here, for example, on the third and the last paragraph of the code, this one, we have here 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs. So in the last paragraph, the last one, which starts with note, after the note we have a semicolon, then we have the symbol less than. So this is how it is displayed: note, then semicolon, and then the symbol less than. This symbol less than was produced because the browser was able to identify that if the user writes and then the word LT and then semicolon, all of this symbol represents the character less than. Also, we have here the fraction 1/4. It's displayed as fraction 1/4. Okay, you can see in this web page some of the important style formatting that can be used in HTML. For example, this is here a hyperlink. We have talked about hyperlink. Inside the hyperlink, because we are putting all of this sentence, which is send an email to title and associates, we are putting all this sentence inside an HTML element, so it will become a hyperlink, as I stated in the previous lecture. You can see here that the symbol and followed by the word amp followed by semicolon, all of this represents the character and. So it's here we have, after the word title, we have the character and, which was produced because of this symbol. Now the new thing here is that we have a horizontal line. The horizontal line can be produced by the HTML element HR. So this is a void HTML element. Just write HR alone, then this HR element will produce a horizontal line inside the web page, as you can see here. Simply, HR is the abbreviation of horizontal line. Okay, it's called in HTML a horizontal rule, which corresponds to a horizontal line. Horizontal line will separate two parts of the web page from each other. Also, you can see here that if you want to strike through a certain text, put a line as a strike through the text. So we put all the text that we want to strike through between the HTML element, inside the HTML element, delete. Then, so del here, this one, in which we have a line you may download until from this site. All this line until from this site, all of it was put inside the HTML element del, which corresponds to delete. Delete, which means that the browser will display a line through the strike through line inside the text. If you want to display a certain certain text as a superscript, we use the HTML element SUP, which represents which or abbreviates the word superscript. Okay, so SUP is another HTML tag that can be used to put a certain text. Here we are putting 2 as a superscript, so here 2 is displayed as a superscript. Another thing here is the subscript 1. This is displayed using the HTML tag sub. So we have here HTML tag sub, and then inside this HTML tag I have the 1. Inside the HTML element sub I have the 1. Then this one will be displayed as a subscript, as you can see here. Okay, so in general we can display any style that you want in HTML. If you want to know about any style, just search for it on Google. Put how to display HTML certain style, for example superscript style or subscript style, and then you will find many web pages that will illustrate to you how to use or what HTML element you should use in order to display that style. Okay, so I already explained this stuff. Let's start now with how to display lists inside an HTML web page. Generally, we have two types of lists. We have ordered lists and unordered lists. Ordered lists, they are lists in which each list element have a certain number or order in the list. So in Microsoft Word, if we look at Microsoft Word, we usually display an ordered list as a bulleted list of items, but in each list item will have a number before it, 1, 2, 3, and so on. On the other hand, unordered lists, before each list item we will have a bullet. Now in Microsoft Word you can specify which bullet you need to use. You can put filled circles, you can put empty circles, hollow circles, you can put squares, tick marks, and so on. We will see that in HTML we can do the same. We can create both ordered lists in which each list item will have a number before it, and we can create unordered lists in which each list item will have a bullet symbol before it. With respect to unordered lists, where we don't have numbers, we have just symbols before the items, we use the HTML element UL. So UL is an abbreviation of unordered list. So UL is an abbreviation of the HTML element unordered list. This is used to create an unordered list inside the web page. So whenever you put inside the web page the HTML element less than, then UL, then close, and then you finish this element by less than dash and UL, inside the open and close tags of this element you will have the list, the unordered list that you want to create. Each element inside the list, each item inside the list will be put inside the HTML element li, which is an abbreviation for list item. So we have tags that are li, open tag li, and close tag li. Between these two tags, li element, you will put the body or the text that creates or composes the list item. We can see an example here. In this example, it is the same as the example that we saw before, in which we create 4 hyperlinks, but now we are putting each hyperlink as a list item, and we are putting all the list items inside an unordered list. So I think I opened this one last time, but I removed the hyperlinks. I removed, sorry, the items, the UL and LI. So here, instead of putting each element as a separate paragraph, I can create a unordered list at the beginning and the end. So I can create here an unordered list and then finish it at the end. Okay, so now I'm creating an unordered list. So until now I haven't specified what are the list items of this list. So until now I just specified that I have an unordered list, but I haven't specified any list item. So if we run this program as it is now, you can see that it will not display each one of the hyperlinks as a separate list item with a bullet before it, because I haven't created li tags. So the result will be that the same as before, just that because these are elements inside an unordered list, they are indented a certain space to the right. They are not now at the beginning of the line. They are indented a little bit because they are now elements inside an unordered list. But I don't have any list items here yet. So if I want to view these as list items, I need to put each one of these inside a list item. So I need to create here a list item, open tag for a list item, and then at the end of the element that constitutes the list item, I put a close tag for the list item, and I do the same for each element. For each one of these, I put it as a list item. Okay, so now when I save and run this HTML program, you can see now that each one of these was inserted in the web page as an item in a list. It's now a list, an unordered list, which is composed of bulleted items, and before each item I have the bullet symbols which represent the item. So generally, as I said, in HTML, we have two types of lists. We have ordered lists and unordered lists. The example that we just saw is an example of unordered list, in which we have before each list item, we have a bullet, not a number. The lists that contain numbers, the list items have numbers before them, 1, 2, 3, or ABC, or Roman numbers 1, 2, 3. These are called ordered lists. So the ordered list is simply, instead of putting UL tag before and after the list, instead of putting the list items inside a UL tag, we put them instead an OL tag. The OL tag stands for an HTML element that stands for ordered list. So let's see this example in which we have a nested list inside each other. In this example, we will be seeing nested lists inside each other. So here, what we mean by nested list is a list inside another list. So we create first a list. Now, one of the elements of the list will have inside it another list. So this will be a list inside the first list. One of the elements of the first list will contain inside it another list. In this case, we are creating what we call nested lists, which represent a list inside a list. So here we will have unordered list. Now inside this unordered list, notice how we create an HTML. It's good to create a different indentation for each list. So this first list, the outer list, you have this UL start of the list here, and then the end of the list is here. So everything from here to here, everything is inside a single list. You know that because you have the same indentation for this UL start tag and this UL end tag. So inside this big list, we have First, we have a single list item. This is a list item for this outer list. Then we have another list item. Now, inside this list item, we have a line of text. Then, after this line of text, we have after it an unordered list, another unordered list. So, this is a list. Now, this list here, starting from here up to here, this list is an unordered list inside this outer list. Okay, so we have another list, another unordered list inside the outer list. As you can see, in the second list item, you have a line. Then after this line, you have a new list. Now in this new list, you have list items. So we have here list item number 1 and then list item number 2. Now inside this list item number 2, we have another ordered list. So this is the third nested list. This is the first list. This is another list which is nested inside the first list. This is a third list which is nested inside the second list. Okay, so we have here first list, then we have second list which is nested inside the first list. Now here we have a third list which is nested inside the second list. The first list and the second list are unordered lists. The list items, they do not have numbers, they have bullet symbols. While the third list is an ordered list, which means that you expect these two for business and for pleasure, these two list items, they will be preceded by 1 and 2. So we will have 1 here and we will have 2 here. Okay, so you should all be familiar with lists from Microsoft Word. We all use it, and we all create lists inside when we write documents inside Microsoft Word. So using this strategy, you can create any number of lists inside each other, and you can use any list, you specify any list as either an unordered list or an ordered list. However, inside both of them, inside the ordered list and inside the unordered list, each list item should be put inside the li HTML element. So if we run this program, it will produce something like this, as you can see. So as I said for you, we have first unordered list, then inside the second element of this unordered list we have another unordered list. Now notice that how the symbols of the second list will be different from the symbols of the second list. This is by default default behavior in all Word editors, in Microsoft Word and in HTML. The bullet items of the second list, the nested list, will be different from the bullet items of the outer list. And inside the second element of the second list, we have another list, but this time the third list is an ordered list. So we will have before each list item a number instead of the symbol. Here we have 1, 2. Okay, so one important question that is always asked by students and by developers: how can I control what symbols and what numbers are displayed or are used in the ordered and unordered list? How do I put here, for example, instead of 1, I put ABC, capital A or small a, or Roman letter number 1, 2, 3. How do I put here, instead of a circle, I put a square or a tick, for example? If you want to do that, you can do that by using the different types of list symbols that exist. So if you go to this website, w3schools.com/html/html lists_lists.asp, in this website you will find different options for ordered and unordered lists. Okay, so you can see here a specific unordered list is example that we have taken. Now if you want to change the style of the symbol before each list item, we can use something called the attribute of the unordered list. This attribute, the name of the attribute is style, and the value of the attribute will be either disk, circle, square, or none. If you display disk, then it will be in the form of a disk. If you display circle, it will be in the form of an empty circle, nothing inside it. You can also display square. Okay, so for example here, this same example, if you run it using disk, you can see that it will the list items will have a disk before them, this symbol before them. If I put circle instead of disk and then I execute it, it will be replaced with circles. I can also put square, so the symbol that will precede each element will be the square. Okay, so this can be done by using an attribute called style that is added to the UL start tag. In the UL start tag, I add an attribute called style, and then I put the value of the attribute, either list style type and square, or list style type and circle, or list style type and disk. Okay. Now, someone might ask, what does list style type mean? This part is, we will take this part when we talk about the CSS, the cascading style sheets. This part is defined in cascading style sheets, which are a specific type of scripts that can be inserted into the HTML page to change the style and the appearance of certain elements. So this is part of CSS. We will talk about CSS later. Also, the same can be said about ordered lists. So you can put, instead of 1, 2, 3, you can put either capital A or small a, or Roman letter I, capital I, or small I. So here we will have 1, 2, 3, but in Roman. Okay, so the usual is to put 1, 2, 3. If we put OL type equal A, so here we directly put type equal and the value without putting cascading style sheet. We can put directly type equal and A. So if we try it with A, okay, so you will see that it will produce ABC instead of 1, 2, 3. Okay, if we put here 1 and we run, it will be 1, 2, 3. Okay, we can put the Roman letter I, for example, and run. It will be 1, 2, 3 in Roman. Okay, so this is how to change the appearance of the symbols and the numbers in an ordered or unordered list. Next topic we will talk about is how to create tables and use them in the web page. Tables are very important because in many web pages and many applications we might want to display a table, a specific table inside the web page. The table is an HTML element that has many elements inside it, because a table will contain rows and each row will contain columns. The table could have a header row, which is the title of the title row of the table, and could contain a footer row in which you display results of the table. The table could contain also a caption of the table, which contains the title of the table. So let's see how all these elements are created in HTML. We will see an example. In this example, we create a simple table. We have an HTML element called table. So this HTML element, it have a start tag called table and an end tag called table also. So here we have the end tag table and we have the start tag table. Okay, let's see the code on the editor. Okay, so this is a lengthy document, which in this document will explain how to display a table inside the web page. As you can see, the table element here, this single element, which is the table, it will contain inside it all the rows and the columns of the table. All of these are inside the table element. Okay, so the table element will have an open tag table and a closed tag table. Now the table element, we can put several attributes in the start tag of the table element. One of the attributes is the border attribute. The border displays or identifies, specifies how much is the amount of the or the size of the border of the table. As we increase the value of the border, the thickness of the line of the border will increase. Also, we have another attribute which is the width of the table. This will identify for the browser how much I want to display the width of the table. So for example, if I remove this width attribute, I display the table with default width. If I save this one and run it, you can see that the table will be displayed with a default width, which is the width of the contents of the table. So here the contents of the table, they require this width, exactly this width. So the table will be displayed exactly as the contents of the table require the width of the table to be. The width will be calculated automatically by the browser according to the contents of the rows of the table. Now I can change this width by specifying any width that I want. So I can put here inside the start tag of the table, I can put width equal, for example, 600 or 500. I will save and run. Okay, you can see this is the same table. What happened here is that I just expanded the table to a certain width that I specified. These are 500 pixels instead of the 100 or the automatic number of pixels that were calculated automatically by the browser according to the content of the table. Now, why would I prefer such width? Because in the previous one, the title of the table was displayed in several lines. Usually, the title of the table, in professional looking, it is displayed as a single line. That the title will be a single line. So it's better to specify the width by myself in order to make the table appear, the title of the table to appear as a single line only instead of several lines as it was appearing when we ran the example previously. Okay, so if I remove the width and save, and if I run, so when I remove the width and I run the program, you can see that the title of the table now is displayed as on several lines, which is not a professional looking. It's better to display a manual width of the table in order to make the title of the table appear in a single line only. I can also change the width of the border of the table. So if I put here, for example, border equal 3, okay, and then I run the program, okay, you can see that the size of the border of the table now increases. So it's more thickness in the border of the table. Now inside the table, you might have three different parts of the table. The header of the table, the body of the table, and the footer of the table. These three parts are represented in HTML by three different elements. We have the t-head element, we have the t-foot element, and we have the t-body element. As you have deduced, the t-head is for the header row, the first row of the table in which you display the text in bold. This is the header row of the table. The foot HTML element, tfoot HTML element, represents the footer of the table. Also, in many cases, you might summarize the table in the footer row, in the last row, which is the footer row. In this case, you display the contents of this row inside the element tfoot. And the whole body of the table is displayed inside the HTML element tbody. Now, each row of the table will be displayed or will be included inside an element. Let's run it. Okay. So each row in the element, as you can see here, the table will have a header row. This is the header row. This is the footer row. And inside the body of the table, I have 4 rows. Each row will be put inside an HTML element called tr. So this tr, it means that inside these two tags, the open tag and the close tag of tr, I have a row of a table. Now each cell of the table, each single cell, will be put inside an element. This element, if the cell is part of the header of the table, if the cell should be displayed as a header cell, then the cell should be put inside an HTML element called th, okay, which is an abbreviation of a heading cell, table heading cell. Okay, so this is called a table heading. Okay, when we put a cell inside a table heading element between open and close th tags, this means that this cell, the text of this cell, is a heading text. Heading text means that this text will be displayed as a bold font, in a bold font. That's why here, when we have fruit and price, these two, they are displayed in bold and they are displayed in the center of the cell. If the cell is an ordinary cell, table cell, it's not a header cell, then the text of the cell will not be bold, and the cell will be to the right of the text in the cell will be to the right of the cell, or to the left of the cell, not in the center of the cell. But if the cell is a heading cell, then the text inside the cell will be bold and it will be in the center of the cell. So as you can see here, we have a heading row, 4 ordinary rows in the body, and a footer row. Inside the heading row, inside the heading row here, we have a single row in which we put inside the tr tags. So here we have a single row only. Now in this row, we have 2 cells, which means that we have 2 header cells, th and th. Each one of these represents a single cell, but these cells are header cells, which means that these 2 texts will be bold and centralized. Inside the body of the table, we have 4 rows. As you can see, we have 4 rows. So we have 4 tr elements, HTML elements, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each one of these represents a single row in the table. Inside each row, we have 2 cells. So we put 2 elements of 2 HTML elements. This element is called TD, which is an abbreviation for table data. So this TD means a data cell. This is table data cell. So we have inside each row 2 TD elements. Each one of these TD elements represents a single cell. And both the TD elements together are put inside a TR element, which represents a single row in the table. All these 4 rows are put inside the body of the table. Okay, so we have the header row, we have the body, also we have the footer row. The footer row is optional. You can include a footer row in a table, or you can omit it. You can put the table without a header and without a footer even. Without a footer and even without a header. You can put a table directly as a body only. So the only part which is obligatory in a table is the body of the table. The header and footer, they are optional. The footer is very similar to the header. So the tfoot element or tfoot HTML element is very similar to the thead HTML element, except that the thead is put as the first row in the table, while tfoot is put as the last row in the table. Instead tfoot, we have also a single row, which is shown as a single tr element inside the tfoot, a single row, and inside this t row, inside this footer row, inside this tr element, we have two cells also, which are put inside th in order to make the text of these two cells center and bold. The last thing we will speak about in this example about a table is the caption of the table. The caption includes inside it the title of the table. So you identify that this is a caption of the table by putting inside the table the element another element called caption element. The caption HTML element will identify that inside this element I am putting the title of the table. So you can see this title that we can see here, table of fruits first column and their prices second column. It is written inside the caption HTML element, which will be displayed as the title of the table on top of the table. By default, HTML displays always the title of the table on top of the table. Okay, and here I'm putting the title in bold font because I'm putting the HTML element strong and its open and close tags in front or before the title of the table. So I'm putting the title of the table inside the HTML element strong, which will make the whole title of the table appear in bold font. Okay. So these are the main elements that will create or constitute a table for you. I have already talked about the three different elements of the table, the header of the table, the body and the footer. And I talked about various HTML elements that are used inside each one of these, such as the th, which is the header cell, the tr, which is the row. Any row is put inside tr and element, and the td, which is the data cell inside the ordinary row and the body of it. So this was the basic concept of table, how to create a basic table. Sometimes we want to create advanced feature inside a table, in which we want a certain cell to span along two rows, or a certain cell to span along several rows or several columns. So in this table, we have each cell occupies a single cell only. Sometimes we want to group several cells together, either horizontally or vertically. So for example, I want to group these two, fruit and apple here, I want to group them together. Or I want to group banana and one here, I want to group them together. So I want a certain cell to span along several columns or several rows. HTML gives me the opportunity to do that by using the HTML elements, which are row span and column span. Row span and column span. These two, they create HTML cells, but these cells, they span along multiple rows or multiple columns. So for example, you can see here, when I will run this program, you can see here that I will create a table, inside this table, I have inside the header of the table, I have a picture inside a single cell, but this cell spans 2 rows of the table. So I have here 1 row and another row. The first cell will span among 2 rows. Also, I have this cell here. This cell is spanning among 4 columns. So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 columns in the table, as you can see, 5 columns. But I have at the beginning, in the first row, I have a cell that will span among 4 columns. How I am able to create such a table? By using the row span and col span HTML elements of the table. So in order to create this table that you have seen, first I have the table border. Let's see it in HTML and then Notepad editor better. Okay. This is the example that will show the table that contains cells that span among multiple rows and multiple columns. First, in the header of the table, so the main tag of the table is the same. The caption is the same. Now, inside the header, I have a single row as usual. Here I have actually 2 rows inside the header, so the header here will be from here until here. All of this is inside the header. Now inside the header you will find that you will have 2 rows here, not a single row. You will have 2 rows. Both of these rows, they will be part of the header of the table. So if I look at this example, here now I have the header is this row and this row. Both of these first 2 rows, they constitute the header of the table. Okay, but the first cell will span among the 2 rows together. So the first cell will be a single cell that will be a part of both rows of the 2 rows. How am I able to do that? I will use the row span property. So here I will put a first row. In the first row, I will identify a cell, a table head cell. But in this cell, I will say that the row span will be equal to 2. So when you put inside the attribute called row span inside the cell, this cell can be a table data, TD or TH. Any one of them, either a header cell or a data cell, TH or TD. But when you put inside as the attribute row span in the opening tag of TH or TD, which means that this cell will span among multiple rows. The number of rows that this cell will span will be identified in the number, in the value of the row span. So I say row span equal, and I put the value of the row span. If I put here 2, which means that this cell will span among 2 rows. So inside this cell, I'm putting the image of the camel. I have inside the cell, I have an image element, which means that the body of the cell will be this image, which is the image of the camel. Okay, but the most important thing here is that I'm identifying in this cell that this cell will have a row span equal to 2, which means that this cell will span among 2 rows. It will not occupy only a single row, it will span among 2 rows. Okay, so this is the first cell in the row. Now the second cell in the row, so here the first cell in the header of the table will span among the two rows that constitute the header of the table. Now the second cell of the first row, you can see here, this is the first row. The first cell in this first row will span among the 2 rows of the header of the table. The second cell of the first row will span among 4 columns. So instead of having 4 cells here, I'm having a single cell that will span among the 4 columns. So here I will use column span and will give it a value equal to 4. So the second cell in the first header, first row in the header, second cell of this first row, I will have a column span equal to 4, which means that this cell will span horizontally among 4 columns. So inside this cell, I have a text. This text says camel ID comparison approximate as of 6/2011. So here I have camel ID comparison approximate as of 6/2011. Now I have here something called the line break BR, which will jump, which will has the effect of pressing enter inside the text editor. When you put BR, you move to a new line. So here I write camel comparison, and then I jump to a new line and start approximate as of 6/2011. This is what the BR HTML element does. It creates an enter and jumps into a new line. If I don't put this, if I remove this BR, then the whole text will be displayed on a single line. I will not be jumping into a new line. If you want me to prove this, if I run it, you can see here camel ID comparison approximate as of 6/2011. If I remove the BR and run it again, you will find that the whole text will be displayed on a single line. Okay, as I told you, now the text is displayed on a single line. There is no enter here between after camel ID comparison. So I will go back and will put the URL. The BR is also a void element. It contains only one tag. It doesn't have a start and close tag. Okay, and the remaining of the table is the same as before. So here in the second row, I will have only in the second row 4 columns. So I will have 4 th elements because I have 4 columns. This will be the end of the first row here. In the second row, you will find that we have 4 th elements. Each one of these will correspond to a single cell in the second row, because the second row will have only 4 cells, because the first cell is now has become a part of the of both rows of the header. Okay, so as I told you, notice that everything that is within th, which means that this is a header cell. So the text inside the th will be bold and center. So here all this text is bold and center. Okay, while the text inside the ordinary cell, the td cell, when we put it inside the td element, it will be displayed to the left and it will not be bold. So we can deduce here that these 2 cells, although they are not part of the header of the table, they are part of the body of the table, but I am putting these 2 cells inside a th tag, not inside a td tag. So if you go to the body of the table, you will see that the first element of the 2 rows in the body, I have 2 rows in the body, the first element in the 2 rows, it is th, and then the other 4 elements, it is apd, which means that the first element is a header element, header cell, the first one, and the other 4, they are ordinary cells td put inside td elements. Okay, so this is how we can make a cell span over multiple rows or span over multiple columns. Okay, so with that we finish what is required from us in this lecture. We have taken about lists and tables and how we can display them correctly inside a web page. Next time we will talk about forms, how we can create a form that will take input from the user and send it to a web server, and we will see different types of input fields inside a form, and what does each type of input field inside the form do, what's its functionality. We will speak in details about the idea of forms that will take data from the user and send them to the web server. This will be the topic of the next lecture. We will also talk about some other topics that will enable us to finish this chapter and move after that to the next chapter, which is about the cascading style sheets. Thank you.